The unprecedented amount of overt tyranny that's being blanketed across not only America, but the entire world is amazing. Nothing short of amazing. And tyrants want the normalization of mass tyranny. If you don't submit to their tyranny, which they call pleas for public safety, you got to get out there and you got to keep the public safe. You got to do your social distancing. You got to make sure you wear your mask. You got to make sure you wear your gloves. You got to make sure you stay in your house. Don't be with your family. Social distance. If you don't obey their edicts for public safety, then you become, not just in the eyes of the tyrants, but in the eyes of those sheep who submit to and bow down and placate to the tyrants, you become public enemy number one, because you don't care about public health. You're the one out there endangering everybody. You want old people to die. That is the psychological operation that's going on. And before I start this video, I want to read some of the comments that people left in my last video that I did entitled, "They're taking blood at airports now." And that's exactly right, guys. If you have not watched this video, they're starting to take blood at airports. You can't get on the airplane unless you submit to a blood test, which they do right there on the spot, give you your accurate results in 10 minutes, and then you can be on your way. No blood test, no airplane ride. Guys, this is tyranny staring us in the face, and the question is, are we going to take it? Are we going to lay down and take it like we gave up and laid down and accepted the Department of Homeland Security and TSA at all of our airports? Brett says, so the government basically bought out the airlines with our money to further enslave us. Awesome. That's exactly what's happening. There are too many sheep. Anyone that resists this will be labeled a domestic terrorist. Born Beta said that. That's right. That is the psychological operation in the catch-22 that they're going to back you to the corner of, and they're going to get the people on their side. The tyrants, that is. The tyrants are going to get the sheep on their side, and we are far outnumbered, guys. We've got to use our wisdom, our intellect. We've got to have freedom burning in our hearts every second of every day, because this is an uphill battle, because we have so many people and so many factors against us. It's not just the tyrants. We have to actually convince people that they've been lied to. And none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they're free, guys. These slaves, these sheep, will obey their masters. They'll obey their overlords because they believe that is the way they can achieve the greatest amount of freedom. If they obey social distancing, if they obey stay at home, yeah, they're going broke. No, they can't feed their kids. No, they can't pay for their house payment or their car payment. But they believe the government so much that with death basically staring them in the face, bankruptcy staring them in the face, they're going to trust government. And they literally believe you are putting their lives in jeopardy because you don't buy in to the religion of CV-19. And that's exactly what it is. You have to believe CV-19 is truly as dangerous as they say it is, because there's no indication that it is. And even if it was, that's no excuse to give away your rights. As Benjamin Franklin said, those who would give away a little essential liberty for a little politically promised security deserve neither liberty nor security. I want to focus on one thing real quick. I want you to listen to what Deborah Burke says here. This is from the COVID response team. Check this out.
You have to continue to have this social distancing, right? I mean, I've seen one estimate that says if you don't flatten the curve, we could have 2 million deaths.
Oh my God. If you don't flatten the curve, we could have 2 million deaths. If you don't do what the government says and stay locked in your prison inside of your house, there's going to be 2 million deaths. It's necessary. You have to obey the government. It's necessary for your very survival. Necessity, William Pitt the Younger said, is the plea for every infringement of human freedoms. It's the argument of tyrants. It's the creed of slaves. The only people that you will hear saying you got to give up your freedom because it's necessary are tyrants and slaves. And the one group that you really got to worry about is not the tyrant class, it's the slave class, because they far outnumber everybody else.
This is absolutely correct, and that's why the president and the vice president yesterday kept coming back to what we need to be doing right now. What the president is doing is looking for the future and looking what we can do in the future, not looking and change what we're doing now. Please, he's made it clear, and the vice president, continue to follow the guidelines of social distancing and all of the other things about knowing where your hands are and washing your hands.
They are our government, mommy and daddy, and they want you to obey them. And if you don't obey them, as we've seen time and time again, you'll be fined, you'll be arrested, you'll be kidnapped, and you'll be caged. Now listen to what she says right here.
The way the millennials can help us is help your parents and grandparents understand each of these issues. Help them get connected by media or phone.
What if we don't believe these issues? What if everything that you're telling us is predicated on one big fat lie that we all have to buy into and believe and act upon just because you said so? Which, by the way, if you obey what they say, it leads you deeper and deeper into slavery. It lays the cloak of tyranny more heavily upon the land than it was before.
Or video conferencing, so they don't have to leave their houses. And please, do not gather in large groups, even if it's in someone's house, because again, you're the group that's most...
Can you believe that this is the point we've arrived at in American history? The government is telling you don't gather in large groups. When has this ever happened on American soil? How have we gotten to the point where we're actually obeying these psychopaths? These Washington, D.C. megalomaniacs, these narcissists who believe they have a higher claim over our life and property than we do. You need to obey our authority to keep you safe. Millions will die. Don't you understand? You're the enemy if you don't obey government, even though time and time again throughout the annals of history, no matter what country you look into, government has been the biggest disease afflicting the most amount of people, causing the most death, the most destruction, the most misery, that's gotten their country into the deepest pits of debt. And we got to listen to these people? I don't think so.
Likely to be shedding virus without knowing it. And we need you to take responsibility to ensure that your parents and your grandparents and your loved ones don't get this virus.
Now, there's a big thing that they really keep trying to pound into the psychological makeup of America and the world. And that's this thing called contact tracing. What is contact tracing? It says during an infectious disease outbreak, one of the best tools public health experts have is old school detective work. Finding each sick person and then figuring out who they recently interacted with. Guys, that could be a lot of people. That's a lot of work that would cost a lot of money. The technique called contact tracing, that's another euphemism for simply spying. Contact tracing literally equals privacy violation. Contact tracing is spying. That's what it is. The technique called contact tracing helps get outbreaks of diseases like COVID-19 under control. In order to lift social distancing measures like school closures and stay-at-home orders, public health agencies will have to start aggressively contact tracing and at a much higher level than they were a few months ago. So what does this mean? Let's play some of this video right here.
What is contact tracing and how can it help stop the spread of infectious diseases?
Contact tracing is a traditional public health strategy that dates back to the 30s. It's used to control the spread of communicable diseases.
No, let's be more accurate. It's not used to control the spread of communicable diseases. It's used to control people. This is people control. It's kind of like when people go, yeah, we want gun control. It's not gun control. They're not trying to control inanimate objects. They're trying to control people by taking away their personal protection equipment. That's the same thing with this contact tracing. It's not virus control. It's people control. That's exactly what it is. We're spying on people under the pretense of keeping them safe. We're from the government. We're here to help. Don't ever trust that mantra.
The idea is that somebody who has a communicable disease is diagnosed and reported. The health department talks to that person, understands who they've been.
Report it, so you go into a database, and then guess what? Everybody that you've been in contact with ends up going into a database and gets a visitation from a public health official.
In contact with.
The basic idea is simple. track down infected people, then find everyone who is...
Just take infected out. Track down people. Who does that? Oh, a government functionary, an agency of the government, and agents of government track down people. Just take infected out of there because that just muddles the whole issue. They're tracking you down. They want to hunt you down. Contact tracing. They're going to trace your whereabouts. Were you around this person? Where did you go? Where'd you come from? Where do you think you're going to be going? Who do you know that we can contact? It's just a whole web of deceit. And this is nothing more and nothing less than the government spying on the people and getting a greater foothold of tyranny in their lives.
Been near them and encourage those people to stay home until it's clear they are not sick.
Encourage people to stay home? How about force people to stay home? Because you know what this is about. This is about people control, and this is forcing people to do something against their will and without their consent in the name of keeping everybody safe. And if you don't do it, well, you're a domestic terrorist and you don't care for the public, and we're going to have to do something drastic with you.
Large portions of the world's population are currently on lockdown, but it's when restrictions are lifted that...
Let's just say what it is. Large portions of the population are currently under the heavy fist of tyranny.
Contact tracing is likely to become...
And by the way, for no reason at all. For a completely made up, fictitious psychological operations reason.
even more important. Doctors say that once people return to school and work, each infected person could easily come into contact with 1,000 others.
And of course, we have to contact trace those people, right?
But contact tracing requires extensive testing, with a need for hundreds of thousands of...
And that goes hand in hand with contact tracing, extensive testing. You gotta be tested. We want you tested, and once we find out you have it, or you may have passed it on to somebody else that we're gonna have to contact trace and get a hold of, they're gonna have to take a test, and then when we find out that they have it, because we're gonna work that around to our benefit, then you're gonna have to get a vaccine. Oh, and then you're gonna have to get a vaccine certificate and a testing certificate. That's where it's heading, guys. They've already voiced it.
Health investigators to carry out the tests in the US alone.
Look at this guy. Anytime I see somebody walking around with a mask, that is somebody who let a lie seep into their brain to the point where it dictated the actions that they're going to take. If you want to walk around and you want to find out who the lemmings are, just like that, we have an outward showing of it right here. And I don't doubt that social engineers say, hey, you know what? Let's sit around and let's create this little problem and let's see who actually goes for this. Because then we can see outwardly who's actually buying into our lie. Who was the easy target? Who just rolled over and just gave their mind over to social engineers and decided to order their actions along the lines of the narrative that we keep feeding them.
Technology could hugely improve efficiency. Apple and Google say they are collaborating on apps that can identify people who have crossed paths with a contagious patient and alert them.
Apple and Google are going to get in on the mix. And we know Google loves you. We know the people over at Apple, they care about you. They care about your privacy. They would never do anything nefarious with the information that they gathered from you, right? That's what contact tracing is, guys. Contact tracing is based on an obvious idea. People in close contact with someone who has COVID-19 are at risk of getting sick. You may not be sick. You may not be showing symptoms, but guess what? You're going to get a knock at your door from a government agent because you were in contact with somebody who may or may not have had COVID-19. Just leave that to us. Everything we do is above board. The process isn't easy. When a person gets sick, they are then interviewed by public health officials. These are just regular human beings, guys, and asked who has been exposed to them. Then they take that list and fan out to ask those people either to pay close attention to how they're feeling or to quarantine. Yeah, they're just going to ask you. They're not going to make you do anything against your will. If a person who is exposed is infected, their recent contacts will be tracked down too. That's what it's all about, guys. Contact tracing is contact tracking. It's people tracking. It's hunting down people and exacting more tyranny, more oversight, more government intrusion into their lives. Let me know what you guys think about contact tracing. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the Google Thought Police in the comment section below. And remember, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. And don't forget to sign up to my private email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow ban video.
Like a diamond in the sky, you know. Look at the lobby, I get the party jumping, lovers are falling, something, someone lit with a 40 grip, rocking and we gon' roll from the floor to the top, no, stop until it's sunny, pass the Dasani bottle, fill it with the cardio, fill 'em with the cardio, up like a bald eagle.